No experience, no skills, no idea what I was getting into. 12 months ago, I was another office drone trapped in a concrete jungle, dreaming of escape. I had soft hands, a soft body, and a soft life that was slowly killing my soul. I needed to prove I could survive without modern conveniences. I needed to build something real with my own hands. I needed to discover if a city-raised man could transform into someone who belonged in the wilderness. Every day would test me. One wrong decision, one failed skill, one moment of weakness, and I could lose everything I was trying to build. The mountains don't care about your college degree, your bank account, or your good intentions. They only respect competence, determination, and the willingness to bleed for what you want. But could a man raised on takeout and air conditioning really learn to build shelter, grow food, and survive using only primitive skills? What would it take to transform from a helpless urbanite into someone who could thrive in the wilderness? And which lessons would prove most crucial for making that transformation? Today, I'm sharing the brutal reality of my year-long journey from city slicker to mountain man, the failures, the victories, and the hard-earned wisdom that changed everything. My name is Sam, and this is Wild America. 1 year ago, I made a decision that would either kill me or transform me completely. I left my comfortable city life, bought 40 acres of raw mountain land, and committed to building a homestead using only traditional methods and hand tools. No power tools, no modern conveniences, no safety net. Just me, the wilderness, and 12 months to prove I could survive. The rude awakening, first 3 months of reality. The morning sun filters through the canvas of my temporary shelter as I stare at the blisters covering my hands like badges of incompetence. 3 weeks into my mountain experiment, and I'm already questioning everything I thought I knew about survival, determination, and my own capabilities. The land I'd purchased looked beautiful in the real estate photos. Rolling hills, mature timber, a small creek running through the property. What the photos didn't show was the reality of 40 acres of wilderness that had been reclaiming itself for decades. Fallen trees blocked every potential building site. Thick underbrush made walking treacherous. The creek that looked so picturesque was actually a seasonal trickle that would disappear completely by midsummer. My first task was clearing a building site for my cabin. In my city-softened mind, I'd imagined this would take a few days with an axe and some determination. The reality was 3 weeks of backbreaking labor that left me exhausted, frustrated, and barely able to lift my arms by evening. Every tree I felled seemed to land in the worst possible position. Every root I tried to remove fought back like it was defending its life. The tool learning curve was steeper than any mountain I'd climbed. I'd bought what I thought were quality hand tools, axes, saws, chisels, and planes that looked impressive in the catalog. But owning tools and knowing how to use them were completely different skills. My first attempts at splitting logs resulted in a buried axe head and nearly taking off my own foot. My crosscut saw bound up constantly because I didn't understand proper technique. My attempts at mortise and tenon joints looked like they'd been chewed by beavers. The physical transformation was brutal but necessary. My office worker body rebelled against the constant physical demands. My back ached from lifting logs. My shoulders burned from swinging axes. My legs cramped from walking on uneven terrain all day. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, my body began to adapt. Muscles I'd forgotten I had started to strengthen. My hands, despite the constant blisters, began to develop the calluses that would protect them through months of hard work. The mental challenges were even more difficult than the physical ones. City life had conditioned me to expect instant results, immediate gratification, and solutions that could be purchased rather than earned. Mountain life operated on completely different principles. Progress was measured in inches rather than miles. Success came through persistence rather than cleverness. Problems couldn't be solved by throwing money at them. They required skill, patience, and often painful trial and error. The isolation hit harder than I'd expected. After years of constant connectivity, the silence of the mountains was initially peaceful, then gradually oppressive. No cell service meant no easy answers to technical questions. No internet meant no YouTube tutorials when I encountered problems. No neighbors meant no one to help when I made mistakes or needed advice. I was truly alone with my ignorance and inexperience. The weather became my constant adversary and teacher. Spring rains turned my building site into a muddy swamp that made work impossible for days at a time. Late spring snow caught me unprepared, soaking my inadequate shelter and reminding me that nature didn't care about my construction schedule. Windstorms knocked down trees I'd planned to use for lumber, forcing me to constantly adapt my plans to changing conditions. The mountains will teach you humility, an old-timer had warned me before I started this journey. They'll break you down completely before they build you back up into something stronger. By the end of my first 3 months, I understood exactly what he meant. I was broken, exhausted, and questioning whether I had what it took to complete this transformation. The learning curve. Months 4 through 6. The summer heat beats down mercilessly as I carefully notch another log for my cabin walls, my movements now deliberate and confident rather than the frantic hacking of my early attempts. 6 months into my mountain education, and I'm finally starting to feel like I might actually know what I'm doing. The breakthrough came in month 4, when I finally stopped fighting the mountain and started working with it. Instead of trying to impose my city-bred ideas about how things should work, I began observing how the mountain operated and adapting my methods accordingly. I learned to read the land, understanding where water would flow during storms, which areas would be protected from wind, and how the sun moved across my property throughout the day. My tool skills had evolved from dangerous incompetence to something approaching competence. The axe that had nearly killed me in month 1 now felt like an extension of my arm. I could fell trees with precision, placing them exactly where I wanted them to land. My crosscut saw sang through logs with smooth, rhythmic strokes that would have been impossible when I started. The chisel work that had looked like amateur hour was now producing clean, tight joints that would hold my cabin together for decades. The cabin construction had become my daily meditation. Each log had to be selected for its specific purpose. Straight logs for walls, curved logs for sills, knotty logs for less critical applications. Each notch had to be cut with precision that would ensure a tight fit without gaps that would let in wind and rain. Each course of logs had to be level and square, building on the foundation I'd spent weeks perfecting. The physical transformation was remarkable. My soft office worker's body had been replaced by something harder, leaner, and infinitely more capable. My hands, once smooth and weak, were now scarred and calloused, but could work for hours without fatigue. My back, which had ached constantly in the early months, was now strong enough to lift and position logs that would have been impossible before. My endurance had increased to the point where I could work from sunrise to sunset without the crushing exhaustion that had characterized my early efforts. The mental shift was even more profound. The instant gratification mindset of city life had been replaced by a deep appreciation for slow, methodical progress. I no longer expected immediate results or perfect outcomes. Instead, I learned to find satisfaction in small improvements, incremental progress, and the gradual accumulation of skills that would serve me for the rest of my life. The problem-solving abilities that developed were unlike anything I'd experienced in my previous life. When I encountered obstacles, and there were obstacles every day, I couldn't simply call a contractor or order a solution online. I had to analyze the problem, understand its root causes, and develop solutions using only the materials and tools available to me. This process of creative problem-solving became one of the most rewarding aspects of the entire experience. The seasonal awareness that developed was something I'd never experienced in climate-controlled city environments. I learned to read weather patterns, understanding which clouds brought rain and which brought wind. I could feel barometric pressure changes in my joints and predict storms hours before they arrived. I understood how temperature fluctuations affected wood movement and planned my construction accordingly. The connection to natural cycles became profound and life-changing. I woke with the sun and slept when darkness fell. My energy levels fluctuated with the seasons. My diet changed based on what was available from the land around me. This synchronization with natural rhythms created a sense of belonging and purpose that I'd never experienced in artificial urban environments. By month 6, I had walls rising on my cabin, a reliable water source developed, and the beginnings of a garden that would feed me through the coming winter. More importantly, I had developed the confidence that comes from knowing you can solve problems, overcome obstacles, and create something meaningful with your own hands. The test of winter, months 7 through 9. The first snow falls silently outside my nearly completed cabin as I tend the fire that will keep me alive through the next 6 months. 9 months into my transformation, and I'm about to face the ultimate test of everything I've learned, surviving a mountain winter in a shelter I built with my own hands. The autumn preparation had been a race against time that consumed every daylight hour. My cabin walls were up, but the roof, chinking, and interior work had to be completed before the first hard freeze. The garden I'd planted in spring needed to be harvested and preserved. Firewood had to be cut, split, and stacked in quantities that seemed impossible but were absolutely necessary for survival. The roofing process taught me lessons about precision and consequences that no city job ever could. Every shingle had to be cut by hand, fitted perfectly, and secured against winds that could reach 80 miles per hour. A single gap or poorly secured shingle could mean a leak that would make the cabin uninhabitable during winter storms. The stakes were literally life and death, and that knowledge focused my attention in ways that no deadline or performance review ever had. The chinking process, filling the gaps between logs with clay, moss, and other natural materials, required understanding thermal dynamics, moisture management, and material science that I'd never encountered before. The chinking had to seal out wind and rain while allowing the cabin to breathe and adjust to temperature changes. Too tight and the logs would crack. Too loose and the cabin would be impossible to heat. The food preservation challenge forced me to learn skills that had been essential knowledge for thousands of years, but were completely foreign to my supermarket-dependent background. I learned to smoke meat, dry vegetables, ferment foods, and store supplies in ways that would keep them fresh through months of winter. Every mistake in preservation could mean hunger or illness when fresh food was impossible to obtain. The firewood calculation was a mathematical problem with life or death consequences. I had to estimate how much wood would be needed to heat my cabin through a winter that could last 6 months. Too little, and I'd freeze. Too much, and I'd waste precious time and energy that could be used for other essential tasks. I learned to identify different wood species, understand their burning characteristics, and calculate heat output with precision that would have impressed any engineer. The winter routine that developed was unlike anything I'd experienced in my previous life. I woke before dawn to tend the fire that had burned all night. I spent the morning hours on essential maintenance, checking for ice damage, monitoring food supplies, maintaining tools and equipment. The afternoon hours were devoted to projects that could be done indoors, tool making, equipment repair, planning for spring activities. The isolation of winter was profound and transformative. With snow blocking the mountain roads and no neighbors for miles, I was completely alone with my thoughts, my skills, and my ability to survive. The silence was so complete that I could hear my own heartbeat. The darkness lasted so long that I began to understand why ancient peoples worshiped the sun. The cold was so intense that every calorie burned and every degree of heat lost had immediate consequences. The mental challenges of winter solitude tested every aspect of my psychological resilience. Without the distractions of modern entertainment, social media, or constant connectivity, I was forced to confront myself in ways that were both terrifying and liberating. I learned to find entertainment in simple activities: whittling, reading by firelight, planning future projects. I discovered that boredom was a luxury that disappeared when survival required constant attention and effort. The physical demands of winter survival were relentless. Maintaining the fire required getting up multiple times each night to add wood and adjust airflow. Hauling water from the creek meant breaking ice and carrying heavy containers through deep snow. Every trip outside required careful preparation and attention to weather conditions that could turn deadly without warning. The problem-solving skills that winter demanded were unlike anything I'd encountered before. When equipment failed, and it always failed at the worst possible times, I had to repair it using only materials and tools available in my cabin. When food supplies ran low, I had to find ways to stretch them or locate alternative sources. When storms damaged my shelter, I had to make repairs in conditions that were dangerous and uncomfortable. By month 9, I had survived the worst of winter and proven to myself that the transformation was real and permanent. I was no longer the soft city dweller who had arrived on the mountain 12 months earlier. I had become someone who could thrive in conditions that would have killed my former self. The New Man, months 10 through 12. The spring sun warms my face as I survey the homestead I've built with my own hands, and I barely recognize the man who started this journey 12 months ago. The transformation is complete, but more importantly, it's permanent. I am no longer a city slicker playing at mountain life. I am a mountain man who has earned his place in this wilderness. The physical changes are obvious to anyone who knew me before. The soft office worker's body has been replaced by something lean, hard, and incredibly capable. My hands, once smooth and weak, are now scarred and calloused, but can work for hours without fatigue. My posture has changed from the hunched shoulders of desk work to the straight back of someone who carries heavy loads and swings tools all day. My endurance has increased to levels I never thought possible. The skill development over the year has been exponential rather than linear. Each new ability built on previous knowledge, creating a foundation of competence that continues to grow. I can now fell trees with precision, build structures that will last for decades, preserve food for long-term storage, and solve problems using only natural materials and hand tools. These aren't just hobbies or interesting skills. They're survival capabilities that make me truly self-sufficient. The mental transformation has been even more profound than the physical changes. The instant gratification mindset of modern life has been replaced by deep patience and appreciation for slow, methodical progress. I no longer expect immediate results or perfect outcomes. Instead, I find satisfaction in incremental improvements and the gradual mastery of complex skills. The problem-solving abilities that have developed are unlike anything I possessed in my previous life. When I encounter obstacles now, I don't panic or look for someone else to solve them. I analyze the situation, understand the underlying principles involved, and develop solutions using available resources. This confidence in my ability to handle whatever challenges arise has changed my entire approach to life. The connection to natural cycles and seasonal rhythms has become fundamental to my identity. I wake with the sun and sleep when darkness falls. My energy levels fluctuate with the seasons. My diet changes based on what's available from the land around me. This synchronization with natural patterns has created a sense of belonging and purpose that was completely absent from my urban existence. The self-reliance that has developed goes far beyond simply living without modern conveniences. I now understand that I can provide for my basic needs, shelter, food, water, warmth, using only my skills and the resources available in my environment. This knowledge has eliminated the anxiety and helplessness that characterized my previous life, replacing it with quiet confidence and deep satisfaction. The appreciation for simple pleasures has become one of the most unexpected benefits of this transformation. A warm fire on a cold night, fresh water from a mountain spring, the satisfaction of a well-made joint in a piece of furniture. These simple experiences provide more genuine happiness than any luxury I enjoyed in my previous life. The perspective on modern society has changed dramatically. I now see the artificial nature of urban life, the dependence on systems beyond our control, and the spiritual emptiness that comes from being disconnected from the natural world. This isn't a rejection of all modern conveniences, but rather an understanding of what's truly necessary and what's merely distraction. The confidence that comes from this transformation extends far beyond wilderness skills. Knowing that I can survive and thrive in challenging conditions has given me courage to face any obstacle. The man who was afraid to leave his comfortable office job no longer exists. In his place is someone who understands that real security comes from competence, not comfort. The year-long journey from city slicker to mountain man has been the most challenging and rewarding experience of my life. It has stripped away everything artificial and unnecessary, revealing capabilities and strengths I never knew I possessed. The man who started this journey was dependent, anxious, and spiritually empty. The man who completed it is self-reliant, confident, and deeply connected to the natural world that sustains all life. This transformation isn't just about learning to live in the wilderness, it's about discovering what it means to be truly human in a world that has forgotten its connection to the natural systems that make life possible.